A total government shutdown averted, at least for now, but our Congress still has yet to tackle the most pressing issue, the fiscal cliff. Bush-era tax cuts are set to expire, and major sequestration kicks in at year's end. It's pretty much a make-or-break moment affecting the wallets of all of us, and yet our Congress still isn't any closer to finding a solution. For more on what's at stake, Grover Norquist, President of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, great to see you. Happy Friday.
Absolutely.
I want to start with this OMB report on sequestration. They were pretty outspoken today in what they thought sequestration would do. They said the report leaves no question that the sequestration would be deeply destructive to national security, domestic investments, core government functions. Sequestration would result in reduction in readiness of many non-deployed units, delays in investments in new equipment and facilities, cutbacks in equipment repairs, declines in military research, and so on and so on. Do you agree?
Well, what sequestration is, it says over the next 10 years, you have to drop $1 trillion in the additional spending you were planning. This is a reduction in increases. It's about $100 billion a year in budgets that are quite large, and it's $50 billion on defense and $50 billion on non-defense. There are perhaps other ways to save that money, but this is a small amount of money as a percentage of the budget. And if we give the government some flexibility on how to save the money, these are reasonable reductions in the increase in government spending.
Well, I understand your point, but I think a lot of people tonight are making the point, are you seeing what's going on in the Middle East? Is this any time to ratchet back our spending on defense?
Well, when conservatives know that when the liberals say we're going to spend money on education, we know perfectly well that a lot of it goes to the bureaucracy and the teachers union and has nothing to do with the kids. Sometimes people say they're going to spend money on defense, and it doesn't have anything to do with how strong our military is. We need to be very careful not to let somebody throw up a red flag and yell defense, and conservatives act the way liberals do when people say welfare, and act as if all welfare spending actually help people. It doesn't.
I want to talk about Ben Bernanke and the Fed. Major action this week. Listen to this from Ben Bernanke.
Sure.
If the fiscal cliff isn't addressed, as I've said, I don't think our tools are strong enough to offset the effects of a major fiscal shock. So I think it's really important for the fiscal policymakers to work together and try to find a solution for that.
What do you make of the Fed's move? I know you're not an economist, but you certainly study the finances of our government and our country. It struck me as overreaching in the extreme, especially when he himself says we really don't have the tools to deal with unemployment.
Well, I think he means we, the Fed, but he's conflating two things. Two things happen in January. One is we reduce the increase in government spending a little bit with the sequester. That's a good thing for the economy. You can argue how you allocate the reductions in the increase, but that's helpful to the economy. The other is a massive tax increase of $500 billion over the next year. Okay? So they're talking about $100 billion in less increased spending, and they panic, and then they talk, oh, we're going to raise taxes $500 billion next year and every year for the next 10 years. That's very damaging to the economy. Those are not the same things. We shouldn't confuse spending reductions with tax increases. The alternative minimum tax goes from hitting 4 million families today to 31 million families in January. We should continue the so-called Bush tax cuts.
All right, well, let's go to that right
rates.
now. Let's show what's at risk at the end of the year here. If nothing happens, if we go over this fiscal cliff, Bush tax cuts, payroll tax cuts, AMT, stimulus tax cuts, Obamacare taxes. If we go over the fiscal cliff, what is the impact on, what happens to our economy?
Well, the higher tax will slow economic growth. The higher taxes will slow economic growth. What Obama says he wants to do is to, continue the Bush tax cuts for some people. Now, why would you believe him? For 3 years, he never introduced legislation to make the Bush tax cuts permanent for anybody. Nobody, not the poor, not the middle class, not rich, nobody. I think he wants all that lovely money and plans to spend it. And that's what this fight about this election is about. Romney and Ryan say they'll continue the present tax rates and then have tax reform. Obama wants to start with a $500 billion tax increase next year, and then his promise not to raise taxes in the future that he made in 2008, he's changed that. The new promise is no tax increase next year, which
Period.
means in 2013 he says he won't raise taxes, but in 2014 we could have a VAT, an energy tax, more income taxes.
But we don't know that. I mean, you know, he hasn't said that. Let's just be fair here.
No, he said that he won't. He promises not to do it until then. That's what he says.
Grover, we've got a long way to go, and I hope you come back to talk about the fiscal cliff, because I am sure we are going to be reporting on it pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend.
Big deal.